Coming back. More drinks in a couple of hours, I think. Okay, the next guest. She's the only female member of the boardroom of Nationale Nederlanden. She is the Chief Change and Organization, the CEO of Nationale Nederlanden, internationally known as the NN Group. And as you all know, it was once part of ING, located in the ship on the Zuidas in Amsterdam, and now located here in The Hague, or short by, in any case, of Rotterdam. Okay, please welcome to the stage Dorothee van Vredenburch.
Thank you very much, Twan. With all this wisdom about leadership, both at Erasmus and in the literature, do you have any idea how much is written on leadership? I looked this up yesterday. An Amazon UK only, in books, you know, the paper version, the old-fashioned paper version books, there are more than 220,000 titles with leadership in the title. So then I think, who am I to tell you what leadership is all about? So I decided to tell you what I have in my leadership toolkit. And hopefully you can share some of it or decide to delete some of it. That's fine too, because choosing what not to take is just as important. I'm not going to bore you with a long history lesson on my career, except to say that my CV is a headhunter's nightmare. It's a sort of join the dots afterwards. My profile on LinkedIn has some more details in case you are interested, but it's a sort of zigzag from proper job to entrepreneurship to proper job to entrepreneurship, and I think what I currently have is quite a proper job. On the board of NN Group, indeed, as Twan said, we became independent from ING just over a year ago when we IPO'd our company. And indeed, officially on my business card, it says Chief of Change and Organization. That's because I didn't know what else to do with the portfolio that I actually created myself, which is HR, big change projects, like, for instance, the IPO, and all the communication disciplines, or I call them communication disciplines, including branding, and including, of course, our corporate citizenship program, which is very dear to us. In my view, leadership is all about communication. And I don't mean lengthy newsletters or death by PowerPoint. I mean personal communication at 3 different levels. First, the rational communication, the fact-based, results-driven, spreadsheets, contracts, lots of words and pretty binary. Right or wrong, asset or liability. The what you need to have, whether it's a contract, a certain market share, an operating profit, important stuff to share, very necessary, but quite frankly, not the most inspiring stuff for most people. Because it's about dead assets. Assets that do not breathe. Capital, operating margin, governance, stuff you find on your balance sheet. The next level of communication is already a little bit more complex and a little bit more intimate. I call it the emotional level. Connecting. Connecting with customers, with employees, and even with investors. Because if the analysts have done their homework in the spreadsheets on the rational stuff, then the investors can check out, do I trust this guy? Does this woman know about her market share? Do they understand the markets where they operate? Do I want to work with these people? It's not just about the facts, it's much less data, much less words. It's more about connecting, more about doing. It's the how. but it's a pretty rational how. Connecting because it's good for business. Saying good morning when somebody enters your shop, instead of ignoring them. Common sense. And then there's the third level of communication, and I call it sensational, or when I'm feeling bold, I call it the spiritual level, or the intuitive level of communication. One picture, 2 words. You matter, for instance. 1 hand on a shoulder, 1 smile. It's the gut feeling. It's the why. I think this is also where the authenticity button is housed. When you hear somebody speaking, whether it's here, or whether it's in a meeting, or whether it's somewhere else on the news, you just feel if they mean it, or if they're saying it because it's politically correct. So 3 levels of communication: rational, emotional, and intuitive. The head, the heart, and the gut. Connecting the what and the how and the why. And if you want to know more about it, check out Simon Sinek and the Golden Circle for inspiration on the why, which is what I believe where it all starts, the purpose. And that very neatly brings me to my personal mission, my mantra, and what gives me energy. In everything I do, I strive to connect the purpose, people, and performance. Connecting the hard stuff and the heart stuff. Through the people. Because posters and mousepads just do not work. It has to come from the inside. And it needs to be balanced, of course. Too much focus on the performance and not enough on the purpose can easily tip you and your organization into very short-term thinking. Particularly when you're a listed company, as we are, you become obsessed with quarterly results only. But too much focus on the purpose without a close eye on your performance, and if you're not careful, you start floating in fluffy la-la land. Balancing the long term and the short term. Balancing your dead assets and your living assets. And in case of doubt, your living assets are, of course, your connection with all your stakeholders, your connection with your customers, your connection with your employees, your connection with your regulators. One of my regulators is sitting on the front right here. That's why she gets a special mention. The connection with society at large, your living assets. So even though it says on my business card, Chief for Change and Organization, my dream is to have a different business card, where it says CLAO, Chief Living Assets Officer. And if I dream a bit more, I dream that there are lots of people with a business card that says CLAO, so that we can always balance the attention that we give to the dead assets, the numbers, the contracts, the what, with the attention that we give to your living assets. But leadership is more than that. My survival kit also contains a big doses of trust. If you don't trust the people that you work with, you're working with the wrong people. Change your boss. Change your colleagues. Do something. Because I believe leadership is all about building relationships. It's all about what you're being, much more than about what you're doing. It's how you show up for your people. It's being able and being there to handle the human side of things. Management is about doing stuff, Leadership is about being. And I think Daniel Pink got it right in his book Drive about what motivates us in our work. He says there are three things: mastery, autonomy, and purpose. Mastery, being the best at something. Autonomy, please just let me get on with it. And purpose, being clear about the why. Do you see the connection? Mastery, the what? Autonomy, the how. Purpose, the why. So let me sum up the essentials in my own leadership survival kit. There are three things. And I want to take one out. Number one, I've said it already. Connect purpose, people, and performance by communicating at the three levels: the rational, the emotional, and the intuitive, and thereby the what, the how, and the why. And by doing that, I'm absolutely convinced that you'll balance your most valuable resource, time, between the dead assets and the living assets. And they call the living assets the soft stuff. But I believe that real leaders know that this is actually the hard stuff. Invest in building connections, relationships with your stakeholders. Put a value on your social capital. The second bit in my toolkit is giving self-confidence. There was an interesting discussion earlier about arrogance. I think there's a big difference between arrogance and self-confidence. Arrogance is where you yourself think you are the best in the world, and other people very often don't. And you feel that you have to share that with the rest of the world. Giving self-confidence is helping other people to make the best of themselves. Because I believe that self-confidence is the lifeblood of success in our organizations. When people have it, they are bold. They try new things. They offer ideas. They exude positive energy. They cooperate with their colleagues instead of surreptitiously attempting to bring them down. And when they lack self-confidence, it's just the opposite. They're scared. They're fear-driven. They cower. They plod. And they spread negativity with every word and every gesture. But all too often, we as leaders ignore this, or we neglect it. Maybe it's because we get our sums wrong. Maybe it's because we think, if I give that person self-confidence, it will go away from me. And I've learned actually that the opposite is true. Plussing other people's self-confidence actually helps you to grow. Last but not least, leadership is more about being, less about doing. So I propose more be and less do in the toolkit. Because people forget what you say, but they will always remember how you make them feel. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.